Hello and welcome to the alternate history class. My name's Andrew and here we explore alternate history through the lens of a history class from another timeline. Last time, we looked at the reign of Napoleon's little brothers, Joseph and Louis. This week, we'll look at the upbringing of Louis's youngest son, who would go on to become Napoleon III. The man history would know as Napoleon III was born on April 20th of 1808 in Paris as Charles-Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. He was the third son of Louis Bonaparte, and his mother was Hortense de Beauharnais, the only daughter of Napoleon's wife Josephine by her first marriage to Alexandre de Beauharnais. Charles-Louis was the first prince born after the declaration of the French Empire. And that would turn out to be a bit interesting as he would go on to one day rule that empire, although he was never viewed as a legitimate candidate for the throne, as he was the third son born to Louis Bonaparte, but he was his second son, and being the second son of the third man in line, when the first in line is expected to have an heir. And of course, the second in line is expected to have a male heir as well at some point. It means he was never raised in his younger days to be the French emperor. He was raised to be a diplomat during his youth and proved adept at it, as he had a way of connecting with people, especially, surprisingly, for his status as a member of the most powerful family in France. He had a way of connecting with the common man, something that would prove to buoy his support when he would eventually come to the throne. Now, he would be tutored in Switzerland, which would cause his French to have a very distinct German accent, something that would be kind of brushed apart by the populace. A less popular monarch would have been viewed negatively for that. But his ability to connect with the common Frenchman was a deterrent to this becoming a negative for him. Now, this more relaxed upbringing allowed him to travel not only the French Empire, but Europe as well. And this would make him popular, as we have alluded to, not with the general population, but also with the lower nobility. Not just in France, but he was a very popular guest at the court of some smaller German states, as well as some lower-ranking members of royal houses in other countries. Now, Napoleon III, as we would come to know him, or Charles-Louis, as he would go by at this time, had no expectations that things would change suddenly. But when his cousin, Napoleon II, died relatively surprisingly on July 22nd of 1832, Charles-Louis would suddenly find himself second in line for the throne after his father, as he was his father's only surviving son at this point. His brother, Charles-Louis, had died a little over a year before their cousin. And at this time, he would recognize what was to become of him, and would start going by the name Louis Napoleon, to tie himself more closely to his uncle, a man who he deeply admired and respected, as is a common theme in the House of Bonaparte. Now, also at this time, he would travel less and less, and when his father became emperor, he would move back to Paris full time to not only prepare himself for his eventual rise to the throne, but also to advise his father in matters of state. Now, this time, of course, as we mentioned last time we met, would not be a long time, serving as essentially the Secretary of State for the French Empire. But he was effective, and during this time, he would grow close to his father. Not a man he had close relationships with. Now, that's not to say he was distant from his father, but he and his father were never truly close until his father took the throne. And when his father would become ill in the spring of 1846, Louis Napoleon would begin to prepare for the worst. The worst situation that could befall, that his father would never recover. And as we discussed last time, his father did not recover. But he would die while Napoleon was out meeting with foreign diplomats on his father's behalf. And when news reached him of his father's death, Louis Napoleon would grieve deeply. He would cut the meeting short and close himself off for several days to mourn his father's death. And while he would be named emperor the day his father died, he would not officially be crowned emperor until May 18th of 1847. A bit of a wait, in part because he wanted to more closely tie himself with his uncle. And he would take the regal name, Napoleon III, to both honor his uncle, who was also his godfather, as well as his shortly lived cousin. What was that? Okay, we're going to have to cut things short here for today. And I guess we will have to cut out some more of the details about his life. There has been an emergency. I will have to I will have to go now and read the rest of the chapter on the upbringing of Napoleon III, and we'll meet back next time and discuss further the meat and bones of his reign as emperor. Thank you for checking out the alternate history class on YouTube. If you enjoyed this week's episode, feel free to like the video, and if you want to see each video when it goes live, subscribe and hit that bell. The alternate history class can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find podcasts. Big thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to support the show, you become a patron, and if you're in the top 2 tiers, you'll get a shout out at the end of each episode after you sign up. Thank you for your most important donation, your time, and I'll see you next time as we journey down the path not taken.